It's April 2023. A man in a black sweater is standing on a TED stage in Vancouver in front of about 1,800 people. There's a small device pinned to his lapel. No screen, no buttons that anyone in the audience can see. He talks for a while about the future of computing, and then calmly he taps the device with two fingers and says in the air, "Take this call." A voice plays through a tiny speaker. It says to his wife. He talks to her for 15 seconds, hangs up, and the audience erupts. The clip of the moment will be watched on YouTube alone more than 10 million times in the next 6 months. Welcome again to Epic Fail Business Podcast. This is the episode of Humane AI Pin. I'm Ian Harris, and as usual, I will be reading a script written by Claude. I'm going to be opening a bottle of whiskey. And we're going to get into this epic fail. So I've not read this before. So we're going to be just completely reacting in real time. So let's get going. The man's name is Imran Chowdhury. The device is called the Humane AI Pin, and the company has built it. The company that built it just disclosed on the strength of its demos that it has raised more than $230 million from Marc Benioff, from Sam Altman, what a prick, from Microsoft, from Tiger Global, from Disney's Bob Iger, from Lin-Manuel Miranda. Wow. The guy that did Moana. Jesus. From Steph Curry, in his investment fund, a launch that the company will be valued at close to $1 billion. Wow. 12 months later, Marques Brownlee, the most watched technology reviewer on the internet, will publish a 26-minute video about the AI pin titled "The Worst Product I've Ever Reviewed." For now. 10 months after that, Humane will sell what's left to Hewlett Packard for around $160 million. $160 million. So not too bad. They were going for $230 million and sold for $100. I mean, that's not too bad. Okay. And in May 2025, Humane will switch off their servers and the AI pin will be no more. Every pin will still in someone's possession will become overnight an inert lump of titanium and a battery, comparable to holding the time, but nothing else. Wow. So you've got a watch on your top. This is a story how the most heavily anointed hardware launch since the original iPhone died in less than 30 months, and why the warning signs were visible from the TED stage, if anyone had been looking. Okay, right, so the promise. To understand what Humane was supposed to be, you have to start with the people who built it. The man on the TED stage was Imran Chowdhury. He had spent the better part of 22 years at Apple. Yeah, I thought I recognised his name. Apple. Out of Apple. Yeah. He worked on the original iPhone interface, the iPod, and the iPad. My God. Wow. So this guy just was crushing it and thought he could just go out and do his own hardware. Damn. He had been part of one of the most smartest design teams to ever ship a generation defining consumer product. If you have ever used an iPhone in the last 15 years, you have used something he helped design. His wife and co-founder, Bethany Boriano. Nah, I'm never going to get that. Boriano had spent 11 years at Apple. Oh, so they met at Apple. She was the director of software engineering at iPad and the director of software programs at iPhone and iPad. Jesus Christ, what a power couple. iPads, iPhones. Incredible. She had managed the shipping of the original iPad and watched the iPhone software mature from version 1 to maturity. She also, by all accounts, was the operator of the person. She was the operator, the person who made sure things actually went out the door on the day that they were supposed to. In 2018, they left Apple together to start Humane. They were married, they had a baby, and then they were betting that the second half of their professional lives on the proposition that they had built at Apple was about to be replaced. The thesis was specific. Smartphones, in their argument, had won the last platform war, and then they were about to lose the next one. The next platform, they said, would be a thing you looked at. It would be a thing that lived alongside you. Cameras, microphones, AI, a speaker, no screen, or most a small projected one. I mean, that sounds stupid from the beginning, doesn't it? I mean, how are you having something without a screen, right? I mean, even my coffee machine has a screen. My oven has a screen. And a projector? A projected screen? Are you kidding me? If anyone's owned a projector, you know that you can't see those things in the fucking daylight. So what were they thinking? But we'll probably get to that. Come on, Ian. You're jumping ahead. You would talk to it the way that you would talk to a friend. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You don't talk to AI the way you talk to friends. No, you don't. It would know what you wanted before you did. The way to compute would shift, finally, from poking glass to ambient intelligence. Imran summed this up in a line that ended plastered across the company's marketing. We want to be everywhere except in front of you. Skynet and Terminator. Jesus. For 5 years between 2018 and 2023, Humane operated in stealth, like Skynet. Nobody outside knew what they were building. They were visible. What was visible was funding. Series A in 2019, led by Benioff and Tiger Global. Series B in 2020 with Microsoft. Series C with 2022. By the time Imran Chowdhury walked into the TED stage in April 2023, Humane had raised $230 million. The investor list is worth dwelling on. Marc Benioff, the founder of Salesforce, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, which had just launched ChatGPT 5 months earlier and just became the fastest growing consumer product in history, Microsoft itself, Tiger Global, Kindred Adventures, Lockie Groom, Forerunner, Lin-Manuel Miranda. I still can't get over it. Lin-Manuel Miranda. I know. I'm going to invest after I write some great songs. Steph Curry's Penny Jar Fund. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify. Wow, it's just such a Avengers level of the who's who of venture capitalists, isn't it? This is not a normal cap table. This is a constellation of people who, between them, have built and operated more cultural infrastructure than most countries. And what they had agreed to back was a vision. Because at the time they invested, there was no product. There was just demos. There were prototypes, but the AI pin as a thing you could buy did not exist. The TED Talk in 2023 was the unveiling. It was where the world learned that what the demo looked like. Chowdhury showed the device taking a call. He showed it projecting a small interactive menu onto his hand using a laser. It's such a dumb idea. He showed it translating his English speech into French in real time, in his own voice. He held a chocolate bar and asked it to calorie count. He said the word summarize, and an email was summarized. It was a piece of theatre, and the people watching, it was magic. 1 year later, in 2024, the Humane AI Pin. I don't like the name. Humane AI, but humane, you think of humane as some of like killing an animal humanely. It's weird. I know this is all hindsight, but humane. Just call it the AI pin. Okay, so it went on sale. $699 for the hardware. $699. Jesus. That's more than a PlayStation 5, I think. That's a lot of money for a pin with a projector onto your hand. Honestly, people are dumb. How many do you reckon they sold? Okay, $24 per month mandatory for a cellular plan. Jesus Christ. So this has got a SIM card in it. So, wow. And the AI service. So $24 for a cellular plan and the AI service tier. You could not have one without the other. Okay, so you've paid $600 and then they're fleecing you for $24. Amazing. Okay. Why it sounded brilliant. I want to do one thing again that I do on this show, which is to make the strongest possible case for the side that lost. Because if you only listen to the failure, you do not learn anything. So, here is why in early 2023, the betting of humane killing animals was not stupid. Point 1. The smartphone by 2023 was 17 years old. iPhone shipped in 2007. There was no consumer technology in modern history that dominated for 2 full decades without something coming along to displace it. The CRT television gave way, print gave way, MP3 gave way, all absorbed by phones. The premise was that something had to come next, and the slab of glass form factor was not the final form of computing. It was not a wild claim. It was, by any historical standard, a safe bet. Yeah, that's true. I can get down with that. Like VHS, DVD, streaming. Yeah. Point 2. Generative AI had just exploded. ChatGPT shipped in November 2022. By that time, Humane's TED moment happened in 2023. The world was a few months into the most concentrated AI hype cycle in the history of computing. Multi-model models talk to your computer, get useful answers back, had moved from science fiction to demoable within months. If you believed AI was the next platform, you also had to believe that the platform needed a new form factor. The form factor that AI was naturally fit was not a touchscreen, it was voice. a microphone, and a camera living alongside you. Yeah, true. Point 3. There was real concern that the consumer and clinical about smartphone overuse. There was a real concern, both consumer and clinical, about the smartphone overuse, screen time, doom scrolling, algorithmic feeds, attention fragmentation, a device that was meaningfully reduced the time that you spent looking at glass without sacrificing access to information. Yeah, it's a really good idea, but I don't know. There was no screen. It was a projector. This would have been welcomed not just by the tech skeptics, but with parents, educators, knowledge workers. Cultural appetite for the post-phone device was real. Yeah. Point 4, Apple, the company most positioned to build this, had not shipped a new category since the Apple Watch in 2015. The Vision Pro headset had not arrived until early 2024, and when it did, it would be a glass slab strapped to your face. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I never noticed that before. It's just an iPhone with straps. Yeah. Interesting, but not ambient. There was an opening, the conversational wizard of Sand Hill Road in 2023. Here comes that Sand Hill Road thing again. I'd never heard of Sand Hill Road. Right, next episode I'm going to look it up, okay? I promise you. Sand Hill Road. I assume it's a road in Silicon Valley that has them all on it. I don't even need to look it up, but no, fuck it. Okay, it was the big incumbents that were slow on the category transition, and the next platform would have to come from someone who had left Apple. Two such people had left Apple together. They had been married for years. They had built the iPhone interface, and they were building a thing to replace it. Okay, yeah. Point 5, and this matters. The TED demo in 2023 was not nothing. The device took a call. It projected a working interface onto your hand. It answered questions out loud. It translated in real time. These were not promises. These were operations performed in front of 1,800 people and at broadcast minutes. The product appeared to exist. If you were a venture investor in early 2023, hearing this pitch from the people that had drawn the iPhone interface, with OpenAI CEO writing a check with Disney and Microsoft alongside, passing on it would have been like a career-defining miss, passing on the next iPhone. That is what makes the death of the company so destructive. Here's what actually happened. The first crack was the TED Talk demo was not exactly what it appeared to be. Yeah, see, the iPhone, if you've looked this up, the iPhone was all fake as well. They just didn't have all the bugs figured out. These bastards. Just don't demo it. But I've demoed enough stuff in my time to know that everything goes wrong in a demo. But still, bastards. In the months after launch, multiple reporters, Wired, The Verge, and a number of YouTubers would document specific operations that worked in the TED demo that did not work, or worked unreliably in the ship product. The calorie counter for the chocolate bar in the demo, Humane themselves would later admit was wrong. The translation in his own voice was pre-rendered output, not a live model run. Some of what looked like ambient AI was scripted. Wow. These guys. Right, we're going in for another scotch. This was not unusual practice in technology launches. Steve Jobs famously held, famously held the original iPhone in his hand at Macworld in 2007. running software so unstable that it had to have a specific rehearsed path through the demo to avoid crashes. Demos lie a little, but Jobs had the product behind the lie. Humane had the demo and behind the demo a roadmap to the product. The gap mattered. The second crack was the launch reviews. In April 2024, the embargo lifted and The Verge's Wesley Hill called the device frustratingly incomplete. David Pierce at The Verge said, "I do not know who this product is for." Engadget called it unimpressive. Wired said it was not worth your money. On April 16th, Marques Brownlee, who runs the largest English language technology review channel in the world, published a 26-minute video titled "The Worst Product I've Ever Reviewed for Now." Brownlee was careful with his title. He said he did not say that it was the worst product ever. He said that it was the worst product he had reviewed, and added, "For now," a qualifier specifically for the expected software updates might fix some things. But the title was the title, and it was in the kindest framing, an extension event for a product that needed to sell hundreds of thousands of units in the first year. The complaints across the reviews were remarkably consistent. The AI was slow, 3 to 10 seconds to respond to simple queries. The AI was wrong. It would hallucinate confidently and give incorrect answers. The laser projection on the hand was, in practice, unusable. Well, no shit. No shit. Unusable in any room with windows. So fine in your cellar then. The device got hot. Uncomfortably hot. Like Samsung phones, probably. Against your chest. So, see, the product could set you on fire, let's say. That would be amazing. It was against the chest and used heavily. The voice commands had to be precisely phrased. Well, yeah. Small variations failed. The camera was decent, but slower to access than a phone. There was no app ecosystem. There was no way to play music other than Tidal, a partnership that was not what most users had. Yeah, Tidal shit. Do you remember Tidal versus Spotify? Goodbye, Tidal. The single most damning sentence in any of the reviews was something that Brownlee said in passing. He said, "Most of these things this does, my phone already does better." That is a sentence the entire company died on. So the third crack was structural and worse. In May 2024, weeks after launch, Humane sent an email to customers warning that the AI Pin's charging case may pose a fire risk. Right, so you're in your basement with your AI Pin and you set on fire. And because you're in your basement, you trip over because it's dark and you die. Well, at least you've got your chest is on fire. That might get you out of the basement. What a wonderful product. And advising users to stop using it and to discard it. The pin itself was unaffected, but the charging accessory was now considered hazardous waste. In a normal company, this is the kind of recall that survives because the product is otherwise loved. With the product, the internet had just decided was the worst thing they had ever reviewed. The recall added a layer of liability and operational expense at exactly the moment that it could least afford. Damn. The fourth crack was the unit economics. Humane sold a pin for $699 and charged $24 a month for the subscription. This included a cellular plan with T-Mobile and the cost of the AI interface. The generative AI interface in 2024 was not cheap. Every voice query, every translation, every photo explained by AI was a server cost. The PIN subscribers were, in inference terms, expensive customers. By July 2024, internal reports leaked to the New York Times revealed that the company had sold approximately 10,000 pins. Wow, there are so many pigeons out there, aren't there? 10,000 pigeons. Give me pin. In the first 3 months, the internal projection had been 10 times that. More damaging, the same report said returns were exceeding new sales, meaning the customer base was mathematically shrinking week over week. The fifth crack is that one nobody at Humane could ever have fixed because it was philosophical. The premise of the Humane AI Pin would be to replace your phone usage. You replace your phone usage with the pin. The pitch was post-phone, but every pin user, by definition, still owned a phone. They had to. The pin couldn't do enough, which meant the pin was not, in any meaningful sense, competing with the phone. It was just a parallel device, a thing that used in addition. And the bar for things that you wear, a thing that you wear for $24 a month in addition to your phone, was extraordinarily high. The Apple Watch, which was a decade and tens of billions of dollars in R&D, only clears the bar because it does things the phone fundamentally cannot. Heart rate, sleep tracking, on-wrist notifications during workouts. The Pin, by contrast, did things that the phone could already do, worse, slower, and an extra $24 a month. This was not a software update fix. This was the shape of the product. The sixth and seventh cracks are the small ones. Individually weren't fatal, but the cumulative were. The pin was 55 grams heavier than most jewelry. All right, so it's on fire in your basement and you can't get up because it's too heavy. Wow, on your chest. But the magnetic clip system, which held the pin in your shirt, was a battery booster behind the fabric. It was rough on cotton. Wow. Users reported their clothes wearing through the pins. Wow. There was no native music app beyond Tidal. This is 2023. Tidal was dead by then anyway. I can't get over it. This is mad. Oh no, we'll use Tidal. Yeah, I think Jay-Z was already back on Spotify by then. Fucking idiots. There was no browser. Yeah. How can you project a browser onto your hand? How could you watch porn? That's a tricky wank, innit? When it's projected on, so you got to put your hand in. Wow, okay. There was no way to look at a recipe while cooking or read a long article. The Pin assumed the world had moved past these tasks. The world had not. By August 2023, Humane was reportedly approaching potential acquirers. The Wall Street Journal would later report they sought as much as $1 billion in early acquisition talks. There were no takers at this price. The clock began to run. Okay, so this is the death. In February 2025, HP announced that it acquired Humane for approximately $116 million. That is, on its face, a loss, roughly 50 cents on the dollar against 230 million Humane had raised. But the structure was worse than the headline. HP made it explicit in a press release that they were not acquiring the AI Pin as a product. They were acquiring the underlying AI platform branded internally as Cosmos. And the engineering team, the Pin itself, was discontinued. This is what sometimes called an acqui-hire. It is that when a company has spent as much money building something the market doesn't want, that the only valuable asset left to the people who built it, and they need a home. Bethany Bongolorno, I got it right this time, the operating co-founder, joined HP as a senior VP to run the new AI division. Imran Chowdhury took an advisory role. Most of the engineering team was transferred. In May 2025, 3 months later, Humane sent the final email to the AI Pin owners that the servers were going to be shut down on a specific date. Existing pins would lose their access to the AI service, voice queries, cellular conductivity, and laser projection software. The photo analysis and the hardware would still power on. It could still tell the time. That was it. What an expensive watch. More or less the only function it would retain. Some users sued for refunds. Some kept their pins as a collector's item. A few months after the shutdown, a brisk eBay market emerged for the working pins, not because nobody wanted to use them, but because they had brick devices that became small objects of cultural curiosity. The most heavily anointed hardware launch since the iPhone, available for $42 on eBay with no servers behind it. Apple, in the meantime, had announced its own AI on-device push and was integrating Apple Intelligence into the existing iPhone in 2024 and 2025. The ambient computing thesis Humane was built on did not get tested in the market. The verdict for now was the ambient computing happens through the device people already own, not through a new one. So, the lesson. So what does Humane actually teach? Imran Chowdhury's version of the lesson in interviews after the HP acquisition was the AI pin was too early, that the underlying AI models weren't yet capable enough, and that with 2 more years of model improvement, the pin would have worked. I want to argue, with as much respect as possible to 2 people who built something that the rest of us merely talk about, that this is wrong, or at least it is the wrong lesson. There are 4 things that I think Humane actually teaches. So lesson 1, the hardware is the package, the software is the product. Humane built a small titanium clip with cameras and lasers and a battery. Before the thing was meant to enable, which was reliable on-device generative AI existed, they had to ship the package and the hope of the contents arrive. The contents did not arrive in the time. This is the recurring sin of hardware-first companies. Magic Leap did not do the same thing. In the AR Jericho did not do the same thing. Physical product before the use case. If you can't ship the software experience your hardware promises, you are selling an expensive box. Lesson 2, you cannot displace a smartphone by being parallel to it. You can only displace it if you're better than it. Every post-phone device in the last decade, Snap Spectacles, Google Glass, the Apple Watch, in its first form, the Humane Pin felt exactly where the reviewers wrote the sentence, but my phone does this better. The phone is the hardest target in the consumer technology. The phone is the hardest target in the consumer technology market. It is light, it is cheap, it is owned, it is loved, and it is software that has an 18 years of iterations. To replace it, you must do something fundamentally it cannot. Not a thing it does worse. A thing it cannot do at all. Humane never found that thing. Investor halo is not a signal. The Humane cap table was constructed of people whose names guarantee press coverage. Marc Benioff, Sam Altman, Bob Iger, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Steph Curry, Daniel Ek. The press of a famous investor rounds writes itself, and the press story writes the next round, and the next round writes the next, until the company is too well funded to be allowed to fail quietly. None of those investors, as far as anyone has been able to determine, were users of the product. None of them, as far as anyone knows. Wow. And Marques Brownlee asked, would I usually wear this? No, he wouldn't. The willingness to invest was, in technical sense, a halo effect. Halo effects do not make products work. Lesson 4. And this is the one I find personally the most uncomfortable. Demos are not products. The TED Talk worked, the demo worked, the video clip of Chowdhury taking a call worked. The world watched and decided the product worked because the demo worked. But every one of those demos was controlled, rehearsed, narrow path performance designed for illicit awe. The awe is not a UX metric. The product that ships into millions of pockets has to work in an airport, on a train, in the rain, in a noisy bar with bad cellular signal, in low light if you're in a basement, with a dirty laser lens while you are tired. The demo proves that the product can work, but the shipped product proves it does. The hardest vision of this lesson is that Imran Chowdhury, who has done as much as any single person in modern history to shape the actual product experience of the smartphone, built something whose problem was that the experience didn't translate from the demo to the product. The same person was obsessive attention to product detail and made the iPhone work was, at Humane, the person whose product detail let the users down. Damn. It's quite poetic. That is what happens when the platform underneath wasn't ready and you ship it anyway. We're gonna do it live. Okay. There is a small detail I want to leave with you. In late 2025, the researcher at MIT bought a bricked Humane pin on eBay for $40. He stripped it open, and the hardware inside, the camera, the sensors, the laser, and the chip, and the battery was genuinely impressive. By all reports, it was an engineering accomplishment. The components themselves were still produced and could be, in theory, support a working product. That didn't work was outside of the box. The AI wasn't fast enough. The model wasn't reliable enough. The use case wasn't compelling enough. The pricing was wrong. The recall was a disaster. The reviews were a disaster. The hardware, in its strict sense, was fine. It's the same way Quibi had billions of dollars of content nobody could watch on a TV. Humane had a beautifully engineered device that nobody had reason to wear. The difference between an Apple product and a Humane product in the end was that the people were former Apple. The difference was that Apple shipped software that is ready and Humane shipped hardware that it had to. I'm the host, Ian Harris. This is Epic Fail. Next week, we're going to be talking about Olive AI, another AI company. I hope this is not going to be... I'm not going to do too many AI ones. I'm going to talk to my AI and make sure that he comes up with something better.